Hey everyone, welcome back to Tivoli Zoo and episode 3 of my Planet Zoo series. Just wanted to start off where we left off the last episode. We basically got the bulk of this work done on the habitat. Still needs to do some more rock work over here and flesh out this building before we move into another exhibit over here. I did get a good comments. Thank you guys so much for all of your thoughtful comments on the videos. One person made note that even though the height of this wall looks good, that maybe the distance was a little too short. And I actually did some research and found out that the distance between like the top of this barrier here, or the top of this wall, to basically its equal point inside of the terrain here needs to be 26 feet. They estimate that that's about how far a lion running at full speed could jump. So I definitely need to take this terrain down a bit. I'll probably just smooth it out, and I'll use a piece of like a pillar or something like that to measure it correctly, and I'll go along and tweak that. So I'm not sure I will record that or at least show it off, but I am going to make that change. So thank you for that feedback. In this episode, I think I'm probably going to spend a fair amount of time laying the foundational work outside of the zoo for a couple reasons. One is it'll help set the edge of the zoo. So the Denver Zoo kind of comes in a direction like this with the parking lot, and comes to a point down here and then circles back around this way on the back side of the zoo, and then there's a park, basically city park right here. So it'll help set a border for the zoo, and then also this is the kind of stuff that I know myself well enough that if I don't tackle it now, I either will forget about things later, or it will be really hard to come back to. I won't have the motivation. So I'm going to try to, before we move on to new areas, I'm going to try to make sure things are as cleaned up and finished as possible. So that means like lighting and all the detail work, all that sort of minutia that I like to implement in my projects. I'm going to try to finish in each section before moving on. So this episode might be more of kind of a cleanup episode. We're probably not going to get to any new exhibits, but we are going to get a lot of that work done out here. So yeah, I'm going to start working on tidying up this entrance area. I need to put in, I was watching Masked Bandit's series, and he put in like a way for them to basically close the zoo at night, and I realized mine doesn't have that. So looking at the Google Street View of the Denver Zoo, they have some like chain link fence here in the middle, on the side, and they have basically gates that get pulled down and then they roll up inside of a containment thing up here. So I'm going to try to do that, as well as put in some ticket scanners and some entrance and exit signs, and work on some lighting and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so got all of that work done here. You can see I just used the animal barriers for these fences here. They're pretty much identical to what they actually use in the Denver Zoo, so it's nice that we had those. And then these are meant to just sort of give the appearance of those gates that you could pull down, and then they lock into place down here, and they slide along like these tracks. And then they're supposed to kind of coil up inside of these things up here. So yeah, spent some time doing that and working on lighting. Did these ticket scanners. So these are meant to kind of have two staff people working one kiosk. So you'd have two lines in each, and they could scan people's tickets or passes as they come into the zoo. This might seem like somewhat of a small entrance for a zoo of this size, and it probably is. I do know in the master plan they have built in a secondary entrance over here. So theoretically, they're going to get an increase of attendance once they do a lot of this expansion, and they definitely will probably need two entrances at that point. But unless you're getting there first thing in the morning, this is probably pretty suitable for most days at the zoo. So also spent some time cleaning up this interior in here. One thing that is kind of a bummer is these glass pieces stick down in front, or stick down below the roof line. Those aren't necessarily the best example, but these ones here are. So, if I had the inverse of this triangle, if we had wall pieces that, were basically 180 degrees of this, so the triangle would go like this, that would be totally fine. Or even better yet, I would love if we had some non-gridded glass wall pieces, which, there are some of those in the game, but unfortunately they have a border on them. So we do have these pieces, but again, that border makes them pretty much impossible for me to use the way that I would like to use them. So in Planet Coaster, they gave us basically this glass texture, these glass pieces without any border on them. So hopefully that's something we get in a future DLC. If anyone from Frontier is watching, which I doubt, but if anyone is, that would be amazing. Just to get basically a glass object on its own that, in Planet Coaster you could recolor them, so you could give them different tints, and basically it made it so you could make any custom window you want, basically. And it would be awesome if we had that in this game. So fingers crossed that we get something like that in the future, but unfortunately this is not going to work for my purposes in this building, so might just have to live with the fact that some of these are going to be hanging down there, because I do want it to be open like this. That's how it is in real life, and I think it's a pretty awesome gift shop. So if you've got any creative solutions for that, let me know. But I don't see any way around the current situation. So in terms of this building, I still need to do the gutters. And I think that's about it. I might try to put in some windows on this backstage area here. I need to look more at the Google satellite image to see that and get a better feel for what is on the backside of that building. I also spent some time just making these little ticket booth signs. Those dashes are just supposed to be representative of some words and some prices, but I think it sells the overall idea for sure, especially from a distance. So these are the exact kind of details we're going to be working on this episode, as well as, like I said, expanding out the infrastructure out here. Okay, so making some progress out here. I wanted there to be a nice sort of entry sign, so that, as you're driving by, there's the obvious entrance into the zoo parking lot. This is probably a little overscaled. I'm going to probably end up making custom letters here for the Tivoli, maybe for the zoo as well. I don't know. I'm going to mess around with some options, but this is just sort of a placeholder for now. And then, as I mentioned in the last episode, I really want to focus on the terrain in this series and making sure that it feels natural and looks realistic. And one of the first things I did out here was there's sort of this slight decline from this main road into the parking lot. So it's very subtle, but it does add some nice variation as you're kind of looking into the zoo parking lot here. Starting to map out where the actual lot will be. In real life, it kind of curves this way, and then, like I said, it heads in this direction, kind of curving around the zoo. So keep plugging away at that. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to stop at about this point right here. I put in one of these custom spawn points, and the last update, they made it so you can't delete these. I am pretty sure that was only supposed to be an update for the franchise mode, but it got ported over to Sandbox, and now I can't get rid of those. So I'm not going to be able to head that much in this direction, because I placed that there for some cinematic shots with people walking in and out of the zoo over here. So that's probably going to have to wait for a later episode. I also started working on this other side of the parking garage and getting this ramp down here. In real life, this garage is 2 stories on this section and then 3 stories on this section. So you'd come down here and actually, no, I think that's right. You come down here and then you can drive around here, and then there's another ramp down to a 3rd section, which is just basically over here. I'm not going to dig out the terrain and do a ramp and all that stuff for this area, especially because the only place that you would see in here is down here, and I kind of carved out the terrain, and that's an example of hashtag good enough. From here it looks convincing. It looks like it's 3 stories, and that's really all I need it to do. I'm going to keep working on finishing up the parking garage, and then probably get into some terrain work. I need to make a very gradual slope from this plateau up here down to this one over here, and I'll be using the track ride to accomplish that. All right, making some decent progress here. I wanted to copy as much as I could from the satellite images of the Denver Zoo. It's got quite a few handicap spots up front here, as well as a few over here in the parking garage, and I'm pretty sure there's more in the parking garage, like down here. Yeah, I wanted to do that. There's also some that are right up here. Unfortunately, I didn't really leave myself enough space to do that, which is kind of a bummer, but I still think it looks nice. And one thing I realized I needed to do after I made these handicap spots here is change this so that there was really no curb. So I deleted the path and slightly changed the terrain a little bit so that it's a little bit of an incline from this area up to the main plaza, but there's no curb that they would have to get over if they were in a wheelchair. Then spent a fair amount of time just putting in like benches and working on the lighting as well, which I will. Let's go to nighttime and look at some of that. I like it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so trying to light up these planters, I sunk in a ton of lights down below here, just to try to give it a nice even disbursement of light. And I talked to Mike Sheets about like the kind of colors I should be using. So I have a very almost dark green light that is coming up from below and really does a nice job of like lighting up the tree here. I wanted there to be brighter spotlights on the statue, so I put that in, and then yeah, just more of that soft green light in these planters, and making sure the signs are well lit. And then under here, I wanted the light to be a little bit harsher, just because it's sort of an entrance and an exit area where, you know, especially here, you'd have people possibly taking tickets and things like that. I did tweak these ticket booths a little bit. I put in this square piece instead of that sort of triangular one, because it made it easier to hide trash cans in there, which can create a little bit of a log jam. Unfortunately, you can't set like a waypoint so that only this is entry and only that is exit. They use both of them, so you just kind of have to use your imagination there. And then carried some of that lighting into these planters down here as well. So like I said, trying to get as much of that kind of detail work done before I move outward, and just checking things off the list as I go. So I was able to end up making this much smaller. I'm much happier with the size of this sort of entry pillar here. I think it's large enough that it would be, you know, you'd be able to see it, but it's not too big that it feels oversized for this entrance area. And I was able to mimic this text using the these little switches here. So normally I think in the game they're like, I think they're white. Nope. I think they're white and black. So as you're scrolling through your pieces, that's what they look like, I think, when you're going through the list of construction objects. But was able to color them the same color as the letters. They're pretty similar in texture, which is great, and just sort of tried to copy them as best I could. But much happier with the size of those letters compared to the larger ones, especially for this sign. So did that, and then working on more of these sidewalks and things like that. Was able to get a nice terrain change here. So again, you can see right here, I've got this track piece, so I use that to get this nice subtle slope from this plateau down to this one. I'm really pleased with how that turned out. I think it adds just a ton of realism to the outside of the zoo looking in. So yeah, there's just more work to go here. I'll put in a median. One thing that I am looking at and think I might have screwed up is I think this path needs to be not quite as wide. So this is just a turn lane in, and if we use our Jeeps for scale, So this looks like a 2-lane road. It's once I get the median in there, it's really only going to be a 1-lane road plus a bike lane. But if we put this in there, just one car, that's way too big for a turn lane. So I'm going to have to go back and redo some of that, I think. And yeah, then just putting in more of these paths or the crosswalks and little details like that. One thing I wanted to mention was these handicap signs. I just used a little question mark, and then so there's the question mark piece. It's kind of janky, and then I did that little piece for the arm. But it definitely saves on piece count, and I think from the air, it captures what they're supposed to be. Okay, so I wanted to fill this in with something a little more formal, especially because all of this would have been built the same time that this new parking garage was built. So even though this stuff over here is going to be much older, you're going to have much larger trees because it's stuff that's been there for decades and decades, and there isn't a ton of master planned landscaping on this front end over here. That wouldn't be the case for this. And even though in the real Denver Zoo, most of this is it's kind of similar to this kind of stuff down here, mostly grasses and bushes and things like that. I did want there to be something that felt a little more higher end in design, and something that they brought in a landscape architect to do. So I'm pretty pleased with how those turned out. I'm not the best when it comes to plants and landscaping. That's definitely a weak point for me, but I do like how all of this turned out. These planters, just the shape of them too, I think is really nice. These medians are going to be very, very simple. I'm not even sure how much of it I'm going to cover with plants. I might just leave it sort of barren. It would be awesome if we had these mulch pieces, but with this grass texture, that would be absolutely perfect, because that's kind of what is on there in real life is more of that grass there. But for what I'm trying to do, I think that's fine. I don't want to spend too much. So when I consider the scope and scale of this entire project, there's going to be areas that you have to decide how you want to allocate your resources. So I do want this game or this project to be finished, and I do want it to at least be something that people can open and actually enjoy. So with that being said, on this front end here, I'm not going to go crazy with tons of plants and trying to make it look, super duper realistic. It just needs to look good enough and convincing enough on the front end here. So most of the resources I want to put into the park or into the zoo, and it's just kind of the choices you have to make when you go this detailed and go this large on a project. Okay, more tedious detailing. So put these crosswalks in here. I still have not fixed this. I haven't been able to bring myself to do it yet. I'm going to, though, at some point. So yeah, just trying to, like I said, work in this direction as much as I can, keeping this in mind over here. One thing I noticed from the satellite images is that this is an area designated for bus parking, so school field trips and things like that. And then there's also a bus parking area over here as well that I'll get to eventually. But I did want to include that. This is just a placeholder. I'm going to do a completely different planter for this area here. But just trying to get a sense of spacing and scale and things like that. Let's see, also added in these little clearance things. So this is something that Mr. Domez made for the guys in Bro Coaster. So they were trying to measure the height of an overpass, a bridge that leads into their zoo, and they measured it about three Jeeps high. So this clearance is about one and a half Jeeps. And then these amazing custom cars are on the workshop. I'm so sorry. Let me see if I can let's see. No, that's not it. I think they had, yeah, here we go. Let's see whose this was. This is Hot Dog question marks workshop. So I'll include a link to the description for them. I'm not going to use a ton of these just because, again, 401 pieces, and I don't want to slow my frame rate just for a bunch of cars, 373. So yeah, they are great, but unfortunately I won't be able to use a ton of them. Hopefully we get some cars at some point in future DLCs. I know that we got them with I think it was the Studios pack in Planet Coaster. I'm not sure if they could actually develop a reason to have them in this game. Like, it was an obvious reason for that pack because they had like all the stunt stuff and everything, but hopefully it's something that we get in the future. I'm not sure though. So otherwise I might just have a bunch of empty parking lots out here and parking structures. So now I think most of what I need to do is like planting and just starting to work on more of these road markings and the lines for like the parking garage here, and then the parking lines for over in here. Alright, so took a break from Planet Skylines to finish the rest of the details on this building. So I can't remember if I mentioned or not, but I needed to finish the gutters on this structure. And I probably won't do gutters on every single building, but I definitely wanted to do them on these front entrance buildings just because they're so prominent. But I think they turned out great. It definitely adds a ton of detail to them, and I even tried to do them here where it would run off here and then down onto this area. Same thing with these over here and then on the back side. So that took quite a bit of time, and I've gotten to a point where this, you can see I've got a floating piece here, which I'll delete. But yeah, when I'm working on this building too, the game kind of grinds to a halt just because there's so many pieces in it. But yeah, well worth the additional detail, I think. And then also started working on, just like I said, more road markings. So putting in lines. This is that bike lane I was talking about. So bike lane goes all the way along the sides on both sides. Making sure I get the turn lanes in. And again, here's a great example. If you can see, I'm going to have to make this smaller. So we'll see. I'll get to it at some point, I promise. And then I left this open here. I might just make it go all the way across and just make this a three-way intersection. I do know that currently, so right now in real life, this is a golf course that they're going through a complete overhaul and renovation, and the new entrance to the golf course is going to be right here. So I might leave this the way it is for now until maybe like the entire zoo is finished, and then if the game is still getting decent performance and all that stuff, then I might go ahead and make the entrance for the golf course over here, just to get a better sense of realism for the outside area of the zoo. Otherwise, I would much rather spend those resources on putting in, there's a really beautiful pavilion inside Denver City Park, which I'd rather do that, and then the Denver Museum of Nature and Science is kind of like over here. So I'd rather do both of those things before I spend resources on a golf course building. So I'm gonna leave it like that for now, and then we'll revisit it much further down the line. So yeah, more arrows. You can see now how this parking garage functions. So it's one way around this loop here, and then two-way up and down this ramp. So yeah, need to do some more of those. Need to get the parking lines in. Did some more landscaping down here. Again, not my strongest thing, not my strong suit, but just trying to make it look somewhat natural. And then especially over here, making it look like, these trees have been here for decades and decades, which is true, they have. And you can really see when you look at the street view. And then working more on getting, again, I'm not going to be able to go in this direction. It really, this path really needs to cut through right here, and I'm just not going to be able to do that because of this thing. So I probably won't get any more progress done in the parking lot over here. Just wanted to start from here so you can get a better sense of kind of what things look like at peak level. And I think I just love like the depth here of looking into the zoo from the street level. It's kind of obscured by these trees and all these plants and stuff, but you still get a sense of like the zoo kind of pulling you in and inviting you in. Yeah, that's nothing really substantial to look at in this update. I mean, I just put in more of those parking lines, put them in over here on the parking garage, added in, little details like this. The arrows indicating that it's, it's two lanes up and down the ramp there. One thing that ended up taking quite a bit of time was these. So you can see I used the smallest art shapes possible for those, whereas over here I used fairly large ones, and mainly that's for draw distance. So the further you zoom out, they don't disappear as quickly as those ones do. So you can still see the white ones, you can't see the yellow ones anymore. But if I were to use those same shapes for these parking spots over here, they would poke through the bottom of the parking garage, which you can see there is one right there that's doing that. But what I had to do was, if I go in through this gap here, so yeah, you can see there's two pieces or two levels of this plaster. And that's because those, even though it's the smallest art shapes, they still poked through the bottom. So I had to create another level of the parking garage to hide those as you look underneath. That's something that at first I wasn't going to really worry about it, but the fact that so many of the guests actually come out of that spawn point and come out of these, I really didn't want it to be obstructed down here. So that took quite a bit of time hiding all of those. And then we've got another clearance sign over here. And another thing that was created by the amazing Mr. Domez are these dumpsters, which thank God, I really, really wanted something like this in these backstage areas. He made these amazing dumpsters, these barrels, pallets. So all of this stuff, I'll include the links to the workshop, but he's got an entire set of all this kind of stuff, and it's fantastic. It really helps sell the realism and the details back here. So he also made these little soda machines. FizzWiz is a fictional brand that Mike Sheets made, I think way back in like a Roller Coaster Tycoon series. So he made this green one here, and I just recolored them for other flavors. I wanted to have a variety in there, but and then this is supposed to be a little lemonade stand. Pucker Up is a fictional brand that is in No Name Landia and Jubilee Gardens, and even my Fun Fair project, those of you that have followed me there. So I want to do more of those. There's a pretzel stand called Mind Gluten. There is cotton candy. I don't think we gave that a clever name, and then there's the little ice cream of the future is called Tiny Frozen Balls. So I'll have one of those stands as well. I think I'm just going to kind of build those as I feel inspired to. I'm not going to make them necessarily a big priority, because even though I have seen these little things in zoos, they're not nearly as prevalent as you would see in like an amusement park or a theme park. So I'll probably only have a handful each of those kind of spread around the zoo. And yeah, I think that's probably going to wrap it up for this episode. I was maybe going to try to start working. There's going to, in the master plan, there's a bridge that comes across here and then goes in that direction, and connects to, it connects to like what's going to be the new hospital and like a visitor center. So I was thinking about trying to get that going and kind of setting up this area for the next sort of wave of expansion. But I think that's a good stopping point, honestly. So I'm going to end it there, and then in the next episode we'll again keep working on heading in this direction. I need to finish up this building and put more rocks on the outside of it. It definitely needs more rock work, and then need to map out this exhibit here and finish this building, and then I really want to get, there's one more, like I think it's like a research center that's right here. I want to get that done, because then after that we can get into the African savanna, and mainly I'm motivated right now to get that boundary set down here, and then get the path boundary set over here, so that I can hand the zoo, actually I think it'd be right down here, I can hand the zoo off to Mike to do the braided path, which will stretch from right about here all the way through this entry area, and then all the way like right about here where the African savanna ends, and then meets up with another path that goes this way. So that's my main motivation right now, is to try to get as much work done in that direction. Even if I don't get it completely detailed and stuff, at least get the boundaries set and the dimensions set, so that I can get him in to do that, because it's going to be a really cool element of the zoo, and something that is definitely outside of my skill set and right in Mike's wheelhouse, and I think it would be awesome to implement. So look for that on one of his garden rescue series, and yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this episode. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in episode 4.